Jake, you wanna get us going with some of these roster moves over the weekend?
Yeah, so I mean, the easiest one to talk about is Sevy coming back to the rotation on Sunday. Everyone kind of knew that was happening, saw it coming because they announced it last week. But everyone by size, two corresponding moves really. First, the Yankees decided to sign Greg Allen. I believe it was Friday night or Saturday morning. It was one of the two, and they immediately decided he was going to be on the major league roster, and they wanted him that same series. So that meant one player had to be DFA'd or sent down. We were speculating maybe it's going to be Waldo because he's struggling a little bit, or one of the other rookies, and it ends up in Aaron Hicks. It long time for that to happen. But we all kind of saw it coming. It still was pretty shocking to actually see it unfold the way that it did, because it did come off of one of his best 2 week stretches in probably a 3 year span at this point. He was playing really solid in the last 2 weeks, but ultimately, I don't think enough to justify keep spot. So it was the right at the end of the day. Um, Talk about a tumultuous career with the Yankees. Then you bring in Greg Allen, who plays the same exact position that he plays: center field, left field, right field, can move all around the outfield, switch hitters, so same profile there, except he's a role player. That's what he's always been as a bench player. And he's like completely comfortable in that role. And then on top of that, he provides the speed tool that Aaron Hicks simply didn't provide.
Yeah, and it's, a move that I think kind of shocked us now, given the timing of it. I mean, Hicks had a good few games, a nice stretch there, and I think that might have been the Yankees and Hicks handshaking, be like, hey, give me a chance, let me get some run. I mean, we shouted him out for Yankees heartbeat last last episode. He didn't quite get it because he hadn't played enough games. So I think this is a chance that if Hicks gets released, he's not taking like a lowly minor league deal. I think there's a team that can convince themselves that Aaron Hicks has some value, a third, fourth outfielder on like a middling team. So I think it was in their best interest. I'm sure Hicks and his agent have been working on this for a while. It hasn't seemed that Hicks wants to remain a part of this team. And we'll talk a bit more about the Hicks DFA with June later, just to get a bit of the inside the clubhouse feel as he described. Um, I look back at Aaron Hicks's tenure overall really fondly. He had some awesome moments for the Yankees. I mean, the value of him in 2017 through 19, he was a really great player. He put his body at risk multiple times, returning, in retrospect, probably a bit precariously, maybe not precariously, but a bit early from injuries that have plagued him since, to compete for this team. Like he did, he went through Tommy John and came back and was a DH and, you know, stood out there in the outfield with a threat of his arm that wasn't at 100% health, some big home runs. I mean, even as recently as last year, he had a big home run against the Astros to tie up a ball game there. He was a really good Yankee overall. And I think where he's at this point, we shouldn't, where he's at this point is not good enough for the Yankees, but we shouldn't disregard how he put his body on the line to help a team that was in its window win when he was at the peak of his power. So I'm very grateful for Aaron Hicks. But I do think it was time. I'm not sad to see him go necessarily right now because we've been clamoring for the team to be getting better. And I think that's what they did, like you said, by getting Greg Allen.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of Aaron Hicks, if I'm thinking fondly, I'm thinking about that game against the Twins that he had that was insane in 2019, where it was extra innings and he made a crazy acrobatic catch over his shoulder, pumped everyone up, and then I believe he got one of the either the winning hit or the go-ahead run or something like that. So, I mean, he has like his moments that are positive in Yankee history are like absolutely electric. It's just unfortunate that there are so many recent memories that are not that fun.
Our playoff lineup used to be DJ, Judge, Hicks, Stanton. Like that was the offensive value that Hicks brought. And you can talk about should Hicks have been there? Maybe, maybe not. We're talking the analytical value of his walks and some of the pop that he had, but ultimately he was an awesome above average for sure fielding outfielder and a guy who got on base in front of some awesome table setters behind him and was an invaluable piece for a while. And I think he plugs up a roster spot now, and especially when you have someone who can give that defensive solidity like Greg Allen behind Bader in center field. We already saw him run this series, come in as a really plus pinch runner, who would know his role, who doesn't expect to be a day in, day out starter, which I think Hicks was expecting. I do think changes um it changes the locker room and it changes the managerial options a bit better. It just fits everything that the Yankees need from that position that Hicks didn't want, nor did he provide very well. So I'm grateful to see Greg Allen come in. I mean, he was an awesome Yankee in 2021. He developed kind of a cult following in August as the Yankees went through some silly injury stuff in which you look at a roster from August of 21. That's featuring like no major league players. You're talking about like Clint Frazier, Greg Allen, Gary Sanchez, Ryan Lamar. Um, so
Ryan Lamar, Yankees legend.
so glad to see Greg Allen back. Otherwise, Sevy comes back, and then the corresponding move off the IL for Sevy is to put Johnny Brito down. And I think we'll get into both of those performances from Brito and Sevy, who both pitched over the weekend. Uh, I think it was the right move to bring Brito down. Did you have any thoughts about someone else going down instead of Brito?
Well, so one more thing that I think we need to talk about because it does play into the battery is Trevi injury. We already touched on that last episode, but Ben Rortvedt immediately provided an impact in the games that he played, or the game that he played. He looked excellent behind the plate. He looks really good at framing. He looks good at calling the game, especially considering that was his first time catching Clay Holmes and that sinker. That was really so I was like fond of that. I just felt like that's something that we needed to touch upon. Um, when it came to the pitching, like it feels like that they're kind of stuck with Clark Schmidt right now. It seems like that's going to be a guy that's going to get more opportunities, especially now that Domingo is down. And we'll see if Domingo even comes back. I'm sure he will because he's been effective, but I could also see them trying to move on from Domingo at some point. The nonsense that he's with them the last few years. That being said, Johnny Brito is the most sensible send down just because he has all those options. And he clearly needs to work on a few things if he wants to be an effective starter. He's got really good stuff. The fastball is excellent. The changeup is definitely a plus pitch, but you need a third pitch if you're going to get guys out 3 times through the order. And even 2 times through the order. Like we've just seen, how many batters have you seen grind at bats against him? It's too many.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think talking about Brito, I don't think well, it is a little bit a reflection of his performance, but it's not a punishment for his performance being sent down. I think Brito being on the major league team was more of a reflection of the Yankees' injury issues. Brito, in theory, is like the eighth, ninth starter option for the Yankees, and he's your number 5 when you have Rodon, Montas, Sevy all hurt. So that's where he was coming in. We get Sevy back. Sevy looked really good, and we'll get into the games now in a second. So he's the move, and he has some development to do. And long term, Brito could be a better pitcher than Herman, than Clark Schmidt, but ultimately, he has some refining to do. He's still young. He hasn't had a lot of time in the minor leagues relative to other pitchers of the same level. So, wish Johnny Brito well. I I hope we don't see him this year because
Yeah.
that means someone else is hurt. Um, on top of Rodon not coming, like ideally we have Rodon back and Brito's 2 pitchers away. Right now he is the next call up ultimately, or and the Yankees have a few off days through June. I think they have 7 or they have like 12 in a row, but then they have 3 consecutive Mondays off throughout the month of June. I have to look at my calendar. That's why I'm peeking up this way. But including the off day today. So I think the Yankees are going to try and go on like a 4 or 5 man schedule as much as they can. So Clark might be flexed here and there, but Cole's going to go his 5. Nestor's going to go his 5. Sevy might do every 6th day or every 5th day on a pitch count. So we'll see how that works out for them. But they didn't want to go 6 man. And I don't think they have the talent or the depth to go 6 man, especially with the off days coming up. It's a smart move to send Brito down.
Yeah, I will also say that I really liked the game plan they had with the opener for the Blue Jays series. We talked about that already, but I think that's the way that you're going to get Brito to be most successful. If you can give him 6 outs and then he can come into the game rolling. that seems to be when he was at his most effective. But yeah, like we said before, his stuff is really good. He was throwing 97 to 98. So that's already a tool that you can build upon and just like create those secondary pitches a little bit better. But I am excited to see more of him. But like you said, let's not see it this year.